Hi, I'm Sushant and welcome to this online tutorial by Quest. When we think of calcium, we usually think only of the bone metabolism. But calcium has a role to play in a lot of other areas of physiology. Calcium is necessary for action potential, which means it has a role in physiology of the nerves and that of muscles. Calcium is also necessary for the coagulation cascade. Calcium is necessary for release of other hormones like the insulin. And this calcium is very tightly regulated in our body. In this tutorial, let's try to understand what are the various parameters which regulate calcium in our body. The calcium in our serum is of two components, the ionized calcium and the bound calcium, and both of these are present in equal amounts. It is the ionized calcium which is the active form of calcium, and in the regulation of calcium metabolism, this ionized form is very important. The total amount of calcium in our serum would be between 8.5 to 10.5 milligram per deciliter. Now, there are three broad organs which play a role in metabolism of calcium. First are the intestines, which would absorb calcium from the diet. Second are the kidneys, which would reabsorb calcium from excreting out in the urine. And the third and the most important reservoir are the bones. We'll talk about bones in a great length today because that is where 99% of the calcium in our body is residing. But before that, there are two regulators of calcium. First is the hormone called parathyroid hormone or PTH. And the second is another hormone, the vitamin D. Now let's look at the bones to figure out where these regulators are going to act. Our bones are made up of two components, the minerals and the matrix. Calcium and phosphate are the main minerals of our bones, and together they mineralize this matrix and give strength to the bone. But our matrix is further made up of two broad components, the collagen, which is largely collagen 1, and the cells. Now there are a variety of cells in our bones. The first major type of cell that we need to remember are the osteoblast. These osteoblasts are derived from the mesenchymal cells, that means the local tissue, and they are important for bone formation. Not only do osteoblasts secrete the collagen, but they also actively mineralize the collagen. That means they are responsible for depositing this calcium. As they start becoming matured, they start converting into another type of cell known as osteocytes. Remember, osteocytes is a different name from osteoclast that we are going to come to later on. Oh, but importantly, osteoblasts do one more interesting thing. They are also responsible for regulating the osteoclast activity. That brings us to the second type of cell, the osteoclast itself. The osteoclasts are derived from macrophage precursor cells, and these are the cells which are responsible for bone resorption. When the osteoblast works, the bone is going to get mineralized. When the osteoclast works, the bone is going to get demineralized. When the bone is going to get mineralized, alkaline phosphatase is a marker of that. That means I can say alkaline phosphatase is a marker of osteoblastic activity. When hormones like parathyroid hormone work extra, in for example cases of vitamin D deficiency or osteomalacia, you would see a rise in alkaline phosphatase levels. But when osteoclasts are acting extra, when the bone is getting resorbed, we'll find other markers of increased bone turnover like the C and the N-terminal telopeptides. These are the breakdown products of collagen. These would be increased in patients who are suffering from a disease called osteoporosis, that is, my bone is becoming brittle. Now, the osteoblasts, as I said, have an interesting way of controlling the osteoclast. There are receptors known as the receptor activator of nuclear factor kappa B or RANK. Now, the RANK has a ligand, the RANK ligand, which is basically on the osteoblastic precursors. When this RANK ligand gets attached to the RANK receptor on the osteoclast precursor, that will activate the osteoclast precursor. And when the osteoclast precursor gets activated, it will actively become a multinucleate cell and start resorbing bone. Now, our regulators, vitamin D and PTH, where do they act? Well, they act on both. They act on osteoblast as well as osteoclast. But remember, to act on osteoclast, they have to go through osteoblast, which means the activity on osteoclast is an indirect activity. So, when I stimulate PTH or when I have an excess of vitamin D, what is it really going to do? Is it going to make bone or is it going to resorb bone? Well, that depends on what is the serum level of calcium, and that's where this regulation becomes really tricky. If I have a situation such that my serum calcium is on a lower side, in that condition, I would actually cause the resorption of bone and start increasing serum calcium. But if I have sufficient amount of serum calcium, probably my vitamin D and PTH will further add to the bone strength. For PTH, there is one more layer. If I have a PTH exposure which is chronically high, then it would more stimulate resorption of bone than formation of bone. But if I have an intermittent exposure of PTH to my bones, that would actually cause more of bone formation. And it is this property which can be used as a therapeutic measure. I might actually give teriparatide, which is PTH, to increase the bone strength in patients of osteoporosis. Now, after bones, let's have a look at the regulators. PTH and vitamin D, both of them are primarily interested in maintaining serum calcium. PTH does that first by resorption of bone. It can also do it by reabsorption of calcium from the kidneys. It has an indirect action on the intestines though. Vitamin D, on the other hand, primarily acts on intestinal absorption of calcium. It can also work on the bone resorption, and it can also increase the renal reabsorption, but that is not the primary role of vitamin D. PTH is also going to activate vitamin D, and vitamin D in turn is going to deactivate PTH. This is then an example of negative feedback loop in our body. Now, let us come to the steps of how we are actually going to regulate calcium in our blood. Let us start with an assumption that for some reason I have low calcium in the blood. This low calcium is going to be sensed by the calcium sensing receptors on the parathyroid gland, and they are going to cause release of PTH. As PTH is released, it will do two things by itself. First, it is going to cause resorption of the bones, which means it is going to cause osteoclastic activation. Second, it is going to act on the distal convoluted tubules in my kidneys and going to cause decrease in the renal excretion. In the kidneys, PTH is also going to activate vitamin D. This activated vitamin D is responsible for absorption of calcium from the intestines. Now, with all of this, we are going to see a rise in the serum calcium, and this serum calcium will further go and inhibit the PTH secretion. Also, the increased form of vitamin D is going to inhibit PTH secretion, and this has completed a negative feedback loop in our body. But wait a minute. When we spoke about the bones, we spoke of calcium, and we also spoke of another element, that was phosphate. Does phosphate fit anywhere over here? Actually, it does. When I have an increase in serum phosphate, that is a very potent stimulus for release of PTH. And PTH, when it acts on the proximal convoluted tubules of the kidneys, is responsible for phosphaturia. That means it decreases serum phosphate levels. To summarize, we have seen that calcium is present in both the ionized as well as the bound form in our serum. And it is the ionized form of calcium which is the active form of calcium. We have seen that bones are the site where both PTH and vitamin D can act. Bones would have the osteoblastic cells which are responsible for formation of bones, and the osteoclasts which are responsible for resorption of bone. And the balance between them is maintained or decided by the serum calcium. We have also seen that PTH would primarily regulate by acting on the bones. But vitamin D is primarily going to regulate the intestinal resorption or absorption of calcium. Importantly, we have seen that low calcium as well as high phosphate, both of them stimulate PTH, and indirectly that would lead to activation of vitamin D. Feel free to discuss with me on the Quest tab. Thank you so much, and Jai Hind.